Good evening. I'd like to call everyone to the March 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the Webster Groves Board of Adjustment. First, we'll ask Tom to call the roll.
Okay, Debbie Sahlberg.
Here.
Randy Sprague.
Here.
John Burse.
Here.
I'm Tom Walsh and I'm here and we're waiting for BJ Popello.
Right. And in addition to the board members, we also have Peter Buntrager, the acting city attorney, and Mara Perry, the director of planning and community development here tonight. So we have 3 petitions tonight and we will take them in order. For each one, the city staff will present testimony regarding the facts of the request. Then the applicant or his or her representative will have the opportunity to present their request to the board and address any questions that we might have. Then we'll ask for anyone who's in the audience or online who's in favor of the request to make comment, and then anyone who is opposed. Then we will close the public segment and the board will go into discussion. We will make a decision on your request tonight. Now, these proceedings are recorded, so we ask you to speak clearly and one at a time, and you will need to come to the podium for that. We will vote tonight. Approval does take 4 out of 5 board members. So since Mr. Popillo is supposed to be here, so you would only have to persuade 4 out of the 5. But if he is not here when it's time for the vote, you could ask for your request to be postponed till the next meeting, which would be in April 11th. And but once we go into board discussion, we will make a decision, and you will need four affirmative votes to move forward. Tom, would you please read the powers relative to the variance to the requests?
When by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property as of September 20, 1956, or by reason of exceptional topographical conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional situation or condition of a specific piece of property, which condition is not generally prevalent in the neighborhood, the strict application of the area regulations of this zoning code would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties to or exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. The board is hereby empowered to authorize upon an appeal related to such property a variation from such strict application so as to relieve such difficulties or hardships.
Thank you. Would you please read the first docket into the record?
Docket 2406, a petition submitted by Jim Seppi, Tri-Square Construction Incorporated, on behalf of Joaquin Florido Baracol and Catherine A. Samakadis. I hope I'm right there. For an application for variance from section 53.073F and 53.078N of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 3 feet from the minimum required 25-foot east rear yard setback in order to structurally alter an existing addition and add a deck located 22 foot from the west rear property line. The applicant is also requesting a variance of 6 feet from the minimum requirement 10 feet separation of the main building from an accessory structure in order to structurally alter an existing addition located 4 feet from the existing non-conforming accessory structure. The property is located at 509 Summit Avenue within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Buntrager?
Before we present our case, I would ask to be included in the record exhibits 1 through 9. which have been included in the packet, and including the PowerPoint, that will be used, in tonight's presentation of evidence.
Thank you.
We would then call Mara Perry to testify.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties in that position?
to execute and administer zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 509 Summit Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is that located within city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is that located?
It's in the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant's request in docket number 2406?
So the applicant is requesting two separate variances. The first is the variance of 3 feet from the minimum required 25-foot east rear yard setback in order to structurally alter an existing addition and add a deck located 22 feet from the west rear property line. And the second variance for the same addition that they are doing is a variance of 6 feet from the minimum required 10-foot separation of the main building from the accessory structure in order to structurally alter that existing addition that's only located 4 feet from the existing non-conforming accessory structure.
Which municipal code sections apply to this request?
So there's 2 code sections. The code section for the first variance is 53073F, rear yard setback, except as hereinafter provided in section 53170 et sec. There shall be a rear yard having a depth of not less than 20% of the depth of the lot, provided such rear yard need not exceed 35 feet, but shall not be less than 25 feet. And the second section is 53.078N, which is the development standards for accessory structures. Accessory buildings may be built in a rear yard, but such accessory buildings shall not occupy more than 30% of a rear yard and shall not be nearer than 5 feet to any side or rear lot line, except that when a garage is entered from an alley, it shall not be located closer than 10 feet to the alley line, and except that when a garage is located closer than 10 feet to the main building, the side and rear yards for the main building shall be observed. And then there's another exception for corner lots.
Can you describe the existing conditions of the property at 509 Summit Avenue?
Yes. So this particular property you see in the survey here, the house and the garage were both built in 1930. You will see that the lot is not very deep, and the garage was built only 3 feet away from a small addition that we do not have specific documentation on the exact year it was built. There was a small addition off the back of the house, and that addition is only 4 feet away from the accessory structure that was built at the same time as the house. So I'm going to go into the first variance, which is related to the rear yard setback. You will see here, this is a site plan of the property, and then it's been marked up what is being proposed to be done on that site plan. The property has an existing house that had an addition off the rear that was already within the rear yard setback. That existing addition, which was a small sort of mudroom that you walked in up a set of stairs by the garage, had a set of stairs and accessed into the main part of the house. The applicants started work on this, have removed the stairs, have taken out the windows, put a door on the opposite side, and started work on building a deck and an additional set of stairs on the other side in the rear yard. You can see here, the green line is the required 25-foot minimum setback for the property. The line in red is the requested 22-foot setback, which would be in compliance with the existing the small non-conforming mudroom that was off of the structure, but in addition would also address the deck that was built off of the back of the house. I zoomed in a little bit closer. You can see a little bit more. The green line is where the rear yard setback is. The house itself was within the setback. The small little portion that was off the back was not. And even closer, so these were the existing conditions, existing mudroom and stairs. And then this is what has been essentially done. The stairs have been removed that were going towards the driveway and the garage. A door has been placed. And if you, I'm going to go back for a second. There was a door and two windows. One door has been closed where the stairs have been removed. A door has been placed where there was a window on the opposite side. And then the additional work's been done to do other interior work within this structure. The deck then connects to that and is in line with the back of that non-conforming mudroom, and a new set of stairs have been built. So that was variance number one. Before I get to variance number two, are there some questions? Because I know there's a lot with both of these together.
So basically, if they hadn't touched the mudroom would be okay because it's a legal non-conforming structure.
That is correct.
But by changing the stair, moving the door and changing the stairway, they're structurally altering it.
Correct.
And then the deck, they could have had part of the deck, but that would, is probably 3 feet deep, something like that. This is not a ginormous deck. Is
Yeah.
it about 6 feet,
5 feet.
5 feet. Okay.
So they wouldn't have been able to have built a deck. And when you see the photographs, because of how high it is off the ground, there's some other code sections that if you're less than 3 feet off the ground with no roof, they could have had it. But when you see the photos of how high off the ground it is, it would not be allowed per our codes.
So is there any building code modifications they have to make to the structural changes to the mudroom because of its proximity to the garage?
We haven't even gotten to that point yet because the permit came in
Okay.
and we saw the permit and realized that it was asking for things within the setback. And then we determined the work had already started and put a stop work order.
And the applicant are aware that there may be.
We will have to
Higher,
address, yeah, we will have to look and see if there's anything else that needs to be addressed. Correct.
Does anyone else have any questions for me about this?
Just for the record here, this is in the A4 7,500 square foot residential district. This lot would not be 7,500 feet, am I right? Or
It's a non-conforming lot,
Non-conforming.
but that does not impact
going on here?
what's going on here, but you are correct. It is a non-conforming lot with a non-conforming structure with a non-conforming accessory structure.
And to be fair, you can consider the size of the lot. That's one of the things that
Mhm.
we are,
Yes.
that you are tasked with. So the fact that it is a non-conforming lot, the fact that it is a smaller than 7,500 square foot lot can play into your decision.
Anyone else have any more questions before Mara moves to the second variance?
Okay, well, let's just review. The mudroom is brown on this. Okay, and so we've built a deck, stairs going the opposite way. And they're coming out to the red line and that's the variance they're seeking.
Correct.
And the mudroom was already there.
It was, but it's been structurally altered.
It's-
So
Right.
yeah, so if they had simply wanted to renovate the interior of that structure, they wouldn't have needed a variance if they'd
Because
just,
they're renovating the outside.
because they've made structural alterations to those walls, cutting in a new door where there was a window and taking out a door where there was a door and removing the
They're
stairs.
not going any further back than the mudroom already was.
Correct. Yes, correct. Okay. So the next one relates to the separation from the accessory structure. We require that there is a 10-foot separation between the accessory structure and anything new that was being built. So typically we would say you already have a non-conforming accessory structure. We focus on the variance that's needed for the expansion off the primary structure if it's going to be closer. I did not go through and request 2 other variances to address the accessory structure where it was. I was only asking for the separation in this case. So I'm going to zoom a little bit closer. The corner of the mudroom that was already a non-conforming portion of the structure is only 4 feet away from the non-conforming accessory structure on the property. Our code requires a 10-foot separation. If you don't have the 10-foot separation, it requires the accessory structure to meet all the primary structure setbacks. So that would be a whole nother series of variances. So we were addressing just the separation between what's being altered and the accessory structure.
Because there's no alterations to the accessory structure.
That is correct. It is remaining as is. And then I'm going to show a few photos. So that is the mudroom off the back of the house and the deck and the stairs coming off. And then there's a couple more photos where that trash can is where the other stairs used to be and where there used to be a door. And then the other photo, you can see the new set of stairs that are coming out and the new deck. And any other questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Mara before we ask the petitioner to present?
I do. I'm just struck by the dimensions of this deck and wonder, is there any fine line between what constitutes a deck and what constitutes a stair landing?
Probably would be a stair landing, but we called it a deck in this case just because that's it's a little bit bigger than just a standard 4x4.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Who's here tonight for petition 2406?
Jim Sack.
Okay, would you please raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Jim.
All right. First of all, I want to state that I brought this to the city. It wasn't like the city found it and said, "What are you doing?" The second thing is that the homeowners are not here because they're both college professors. They both had the opportunity to go to Spain and work. They said they could be online with us, but it's 2:00 there in the morning. Okay. The third thing is that while they were out of town, this is kind of what makes this thing kind of roll forward, is they were out of town. Her parents are going to move in here and watch their dog, and they're elderly. Okay. So the set of steps that first of all, that little room was a back porch, which we found out by looking at it, that got enclosed. Okay. So the steps that went off of, can I just give these out real quick? We're just a little bit clear drawing some of the stuff that's on there.
And we'll mark them as petitioners exhibit.
Okay,
Okay.
so the steps that came off the little porch to the driveway side were very out of code. They're like almost 11-inch high treads.
Oh.
In order to make the treads comfortable to ride on and meet code, we would have gone out into the driveway another 2 feet. You can see a little mark on there. It says in the driveway, it says where the steps would have gone to, which would have made the garage non-functionable. Okay, so you couldn't get in the garage with a car. So one of these things led to the other. The homeowner, like, we had actually bid an addition on, would have been on the far side of the second floor, and they're getting ready to go out of town. They're gonna come in, so he tears the steps off. Okay, and then he starts doing, so he says, "You got out of hand for you." So we went over and said, "We can see what we can do to pull this together for you." So when the steps came off, the little room was a porch. It had just a sash, a wooden sash that slid sideways back and forth. So there's absolutely no way to keep the weather out. It was a screen door on the one end, no way to keep this room, the weather out of this room. So we said, well, he'd already just started it. So we said, well, and he was going to move the door. And so we helped him out a little bit. So then we said, well, I got to turn this into the city. We can't cover this stuff up. So the whole project started out with a little room that was already on the house that was not weather tight at all. The access to the room is very poor. It's not safe for anybody to use. And that's how this whole thing started. So I think the garage is actually maybe 6 feet from the corner of that addition, not 4 feet. But all these other things were there. The other thing is the lot for a normal 7,500 square foot lot is only 4,650. So it's not quite half the size, but there's just no room. And so the reason that that little landing goes to the north is that there's just a steps to the basement right there. We couldn't come down anyplace else. They couldn't come down anyplace else to do that. So it was just like a matter of necessity to make this work, not only for them to access the backyard, but for the in-laws to access the backyard too. That's a short-term situation for them, but everything else makes this much more functional for anybody who's using it. Now, at the same time, as mentioned in the letter they gave us, that they wanted to create a small space in their house that she could use as a home office. And by taking that little room there and blocking the door off on one side, because if you look at the floor plan, the doors at one end of that room and the other doors at the other end. So you can't, right there. So you can see the kitchen. So the door used to be at one end off the driveway and the door to the kitchen was off that going inside. So if you had the door where it was and that other door to the kitchen, you could not create a little space, a little cubby at the end there that they could use for a little home office. So by moving the door to the other side, it made that functional and viable for them to do that. So I realize that doesn't address the fact that it pushes the thing back into the backyard 3 more feet, but it's no further than what was there already. And the building that was already there was really non-functional, except it was, like I said, an old rear porch that got enclosed by someone in the past. And so by doing this stuff, he was doing it out of necessity, he thought, to get this was a situation where his in-laws could make this work. Plus, it just wasn't safe. So we've done, this stuff got started, and then I said, we have to stop this and get a proper permit. And then when all this other stuff came out. So so the hardship is very small lot, existing little building, little bump out, an existing garage, an existing driveway, and everything with it, making the steps out in the driveway would block the driveway. It makes the whole thing safer to use, no matter who's using it. It makes the space viable. We're not changing the size of the space. I could take it back to what it was before, but it just goes back to a little uninsulated, unusable space. By doing this, it solves a few problems for them. Some of them were safety issues. So it doesn't intrude to the backyard anymore. We could have made that little deck area the same width as the steps, but it's no further than, it goes no further back than the current room was. So it didn't change impeding into the yard. And it's probably about close to 5 feet from the ground up to this deck surface in the back. You know, they're handicapped by, they love the little house. They love where they're at. They actually want to put an addition on the one end at the top, which they may do when they get back. And they just needed to do this to make the house, despite the size, more functional for them and safer for everybody. So that's why I'm here. Any questions?
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? for
Well, the
Mr.
drawing I gave out showed, you could see where the steps would have gone.
Yeah.
I wrote the distances, which are already on Mara's drawing. I didn't know what Mara would have here. And then it shows that the little green part was the original and the little blue part is where the deck is and the steps. So that's the different stuff. So she showed it anyway, but I just wanted to kind of show where the steps would have been in the driveway if we'd have brought them up to code, which would have basically made the garage non-functional because you couldn't get past it.
Now, this door that I see under the new deck, that's exit from the from the basement level. This is the only exit from the main level of the house in the back, correct?
That basement door would have been, yes.
So
That, and went into the backyard.
right.
Now, by moving the door on the little bump out, lets that go into the backyard without going down the bad steps into the driveway and through a door into the back.
Yeah.
And I assume if the steps outside were bad, the steps to the basement aren't all that great either, but that's neither here nor there.
That's existing stuff.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No, so the pre-existing steps that you had up, that they had up from the driveway were nowhere near what would be acceptable in terms of safety.
Correct. If that had been built now, they would not have met code. They would
Right.
have added like 2 more treads, which is about 2 feet
Right.
for tread length, and it would have gone further out.
So these were short treads, high rises.
Exactly right. And they had no rises on them. They're just treads with,
I get it.
Just so we can clear the record, what's the unusual condition of this property?
what's the what?
The unusual condition of this property that gives this board jurisdiction?
I think it's so small that everything that they had in the undersized garage, undersized backyard, they tried to stuff this stuff in there way back when it was built. I think this lot was actually part of the lot next to it one time and it got split off for some reason. And so the unusual conditions are the fact that the garage is already there, the lot's very small, it couldn't have been put anywhere else. It's already closer to the property line it would be ordinarily be allowed on the front and the side and the back line. And otherwise, we're not creating any additional intrusion into the yard that's there than the current, I could say, mudroom was, or is at the time. So unusual conditions, I mean, just the way it was built, the lot size is the primary one. You know, if the yard been bigger, the garage coming back further and some of these issues would come to play. And the whole thing is the distance from the back fence or the property line to the house is only 25 feet. And normally if this house had been complying like the lot next door, you'd have plenty of feet, plenty of room.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Seppi? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2406? No one online. Is there anyone in opposition to 2406? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none. Now, this is where you have to make a decision whether you want to go ahead with these 4 members of the board making a decision or you want to hold off another month.
And so once the decision's made, that's it.
Well,
Well, raise your
you
hand.
would
if
have, you
approve.
would, you technically have, you could, if you had different information, you could come back sooner or you wait a year, correct?
Correct.
Well, it's kind of it's kind of a sense of urgency here to get this back up to speed here and make it safe. They're not here to answer that question for me.
Well, okay,
Wink.
I think that there's, you've talked about the hardship of the lot size and the location of the existing structures and the need to make this safe and to make the mudroom weather tight and
And we're not intruding any
you're not intruding.
further than the
I
structure
can't,
was
I'm
already.
not gonna say anything more and Mr. Buntrager may get mad at me.
All right,
for
well
what
then
did.
I will, I will say, let's move forward.
Okay, now you can sit down. We
Thank
will
you.
close executive session and move into board discussion. I'd like the motion for docket 2406 so we can start discussion, please.
I'll motion that we grant a variance for both requests.
Second.
Well, I believe that, as stated, we have a hardship of the lot size and the location of the existing house. The city will make sure that, if there's any fire code issue between the separation of the altered mudroom and the garage, that those modifications are made. That's not this board's purview. That's the building code enforcement. Anyway, go ahead, Tom.
Well, I see, we got a non-conforming lot, a lot that's very small. When the gentleman stated 4,600 feet or thereabouts, that's substantially smaller than the 7,500. We're not extending anything. We already have a pre-existing condition where we've got a garage built and a mudroom built. And so I think if the lot were larger, they could have had more space, but the lot is very small. They're inheriting what they inherited. And that's a peculiar, unique circumstance to the house, the property. And so I think by my comments, you can see that I'm leaning toward the request.
John,
Agree with everything that's been said.
Randy?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think frankly, the fact that the design improves the safety of the entire structure is beneficial as well.
Okay, so let's call for the question. All in favor of docket 2406, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Will you please poll the board, Tom?
Okay, Debbie Saulberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague,
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
and Tom Walsh votes aye.
Your petition, your request has been, variance has been granted. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let them know it's
Okay.
Well, and let me say, may I say, thank you for bringing this to the city as a construction person. I think that means a great deal to me. It says you care and that matters. My builder did the same thing. That's all I have to say.
There's too much stuff going on.
I agree.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Tom, would you please read docket 2407 into the
Okay,
record?
docket 2407, a petition submitted by Robert M. and Cheryl M. Peeble for an application for variance from section 53.048J of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 6 feet from the minimum required 12-foot west side yard setback in order to construct a detached garage located 6 feet from the west side lot line at the subject property. Property is located at 667 West Lockwood Avenue
Yeah.
within the A1 20,000 square foot residence district.
Mr. Bontrager?
Before we present evidence, we would ask that exhibits 1 through 9, including this PowerPoint, which will be used in the presentation of evidence, be included in the record.
Thank you.
We would call Mara Perry to testify.
Who has been previously sworn.
Yes.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Grove?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties in that position?
to review and execute zoning regulations, administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 667 West Lockwood Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is that within city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is it located?
It's in the A1 20,000 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant's request in docket number 2407?
The applicant is requesting a variance of 6 feet from the minimum required 12-foot west side yard setback in order to construct a detached garage located 6 feet from the west side lot line at the subject property.
And which municipal code sections apply to this request?
Section 53.048, any detached accessory building with a gross floor area exceeding 672 square feet or with a building height as defined in section 53.020 of the zoning code exceeding 12 feet shall comply with the minimum side yard setback requirements of the district as applied to the primary structure.
Can you explain the existing conditions of this property?
Yes, I can. So the house and the garage, according to county's records, were built in 1921. You will note that on the left-hand side, which is the western side of the property, there is a kind of unusual easement that is for a walkway that takes you back through the properties, through to the street behind. Some of you will probably note we have had a similar variance to the property just to the west on the other side of this easement, also for an accessory structure. They already had an existing structure and wanted to build on top of that existing structure and needed a variance because it was not built it was not large enough at that time, or it was not built meeting the full setback. So you will note that this particular accessory structure it sits almost right on the property line. And then the house obviously sits farther forward on the lot. I did identify a green line for any structures that were over 672 square feet, an approximate location of what they would need to meet. It's a 12-foot setback on each of the side property lines, a 5-foot setback from the rear, and at least a minimum 10-foot away from the existing structure. The request that you can see here is shown in the packet. there was identified the location of the existing detached garage, which is currently almost right on the property line at the back corner. The red line indicates a 6-foot setback, which is what's being requested or in this variance. And then the 12-foot setback, which is what would be required for a new accessory structure due to the size of the proposed structure. And the applicant did go ahead out and marked off in his yard where that structure would sit if it was meeting the 12-foot setback and where that structure would sit if it was meeting the 6-foot required setback per the property. And then also in your packets was a floor plan of the proposed garage that you can see. Essentially, it's a 3-car, 3 bays garage. So because of that particular square footage, that is why it needs to meet the 12-foot side yard setback for the A1 20,000 square foot residence district. And that is all I have. If there are any questions.
So the size of the proposed garage is not an issue.
The size is not an issue. It's just the setback from the side.
Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Perry?
Is the old structure to be demolished?
Yes, the old structure is being demolished,
Be utterly demolished?
completely demolished, and they're building a brand new garage.
I see. Thank you.
Yes.
Because the existing structure is not 6 feet from the property line. It's
No.
more like 1.
So
on.
towards the front, it is less than 6 feet. Now,
Good.
because of the size of it, it currently, if someone was building that size of garage today, there's an original garage and then there's an addition on one side and there's addition on the back. If the current garage was being built today at that size, it would also have to meet the 12-foot setback. But obviously in 1920, did not meet either.
Has the applicant talked to the city? There's a lot of info in here about trees. So I'd be curious what they discussed with you folks here at City Hall.
So you're going to want to ask the applicant about trees, because for us, the tree isn't necessarily, again, it's an item that,
Not within.
yes,
our purview.
we are a city of trees. We like to protect trees. But for us, that isn't necessarily a permanent feature. And we always look at what are some of the options to remain away from wherever that tree, is and its root system, whether it means going further back into it a lot closer, sort of different elements or options that could still protect the tree. But we did not, again, we usually talk about what do you need to do to meet the code? And then the applicant can make that determination on whether they would like to obtain a variance based on their factors that they're requesting.
And these people have owned the house more than a year, so any tree removal is not really an issue.
Correct.
Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Perry? Who's here tonight for docket 2407? Please come forward. State your name and raise
My
your right.
name is Rob Heppel. My wife Cheryl's also. with
And could
me.
you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank the board members for considering my request for a variance. I'd also like to thank Mara Perry for her help in preparing all of this. The location of the garage I'm proposing to build would overlap the backside of a 120-year-old oak tree. It would literally be behind it. This creates a big problem with the structural root system since I would have to extend my pad past the tree. Otherwise, I couldn't access this new garage. The garage is about 33 feet long. You add that to the 12, and now my garage is extending well into my backyard. That is my primary concern. This tree is a key feature in our backyard, something that cannot be replaced. It's a beautiful tree. Hangs over our patio, our shade garden, over our house. And it just kind of is something we really don't want to endanger.
Where is that tree located?
The tree is about 30 feet from my back door, and it's probably about
Mara, can
40
you go
feet from
back
the-
to the previous slide?
I have, I have more pictures than that.
I mean, isn't it this tree that's near, between the house and the garage?
Yeah, it's actually, if you can see the pad, it's right smack on the corner of my parking pad, which is,
See, Randy, here, look on this.
Is this the tree we're talking about?
that's the tree we're talking
Okay,
about.
all right.
Yes.
That's the root structure you're worried about?
And then
Yes. And I
If-
had
there's the tree.
Yeah.
I actually brought in an arborist, a certified arborist.
I'm
Right,
not.
right, we
I
saw
wasn't
that.
trying to-
We
I
just
was
wanted,
trying to
Yeah,
clarify. I
sure,
wasn't
sure,
Right.
sure.
Being judgmental.
So,
so by,
so by using the existing footprint, as much of it as I can, it'll result in minimal change to the appearance of our property and will add minimal additional hard surface to my property. Building a new garage out of alignment with my driveway, which is what would happen, will result in a peculiar and inefficient outcome. It would put the garage behind my house, whereas all of the existing driveways in my neighborhood and mine currently, the driveways run straight up into the garage. It's the normal way they're done throughout Webster Roads. Our neighbors to the west are enthusiastic support for our new garage. In fact, our properties are separated by a 10-foot mid-block sidewalk easement, which further buffers it. So between my requested 6-foot, the 10-foot, and their setback, there is more than enough space to achieve the objective of the setback rulings. It's not a matter of space. I understand they do the 12-foot space so that a new, bigger structure doesn't overwhelm the adjacent property. And so that is more than satisfied. And I really don't want to endanger that tree. That is the biggest concern we have. Can't replace it. It's a beautiful tree. It's a beautiful setting, you know. It's really kind of it in a nutshell.
I have a question.
Surely.
How would it impact you if you had to go with the 12 feet with the driveway? Because then your driveway is gonna have to come up.
I'd have to extend the driveway to the west. Yeah, I'd have to extend it to the west about 10 feet. And that puts it behind the tree.
I mean,
I'd be paving
is-
over the.
isn't that
And-
the east?
And more than paving over it, I'd have to actually dig up the root system because you can't tell from the pictures, but my yard rises from the west to the east.
It-
And I'd also have to add an additional 2 feet of excavation to put in a retaining wall.
'Cause your lot goes,
Yes, it goes from the Lockwood north, it goes uphill, and it goes from my west side property line uphill to the east, so it's kind of a, you know.
Yeah.
It's a,
And that driveway apron between your house and the garage is used so that for guest parking and so that when you back out of the garage, then you can back into that apron and then drive head out onto lot.
yeah, you can turn around, I don't have to back all the way
Right.
down to,
Right.
you know, but and my driveway snakes down at the bottom, so you tend to end up off to the side.
Is there it looks like, based on the aerial, there is an actual sidewalk between you.
Oh, yeah, there's
And the
a
house,
sidewalk, I have pictures
And
included.
does it go further beyond your
Oh, yeah,
back lot?
it goes from Lockwood to
Okay.
Westboro.
Okay, okay,
I mean, Algonquin, excuse me.
no,
And there used to be apparently many of these sidewalks, and
Yeah.
Webster actually came to us, me and my previous neighbor, and they wanted to abandon it because apparently there's some legalities in them being the official holders of the easement. But Algonquin decided to pick up the cost of insurance and maintenance, and so it's here to this day still.
Hmm.
Kind of unusual, but I get to see a lot of my neighbors walking and stuff. It's very, you know, pleasant from that standpoint.
so, as Mr. Buntrager asked the last petitioner's representative, what do you feel are the hardships?
I'm endangering this tree. The other thing is, that according to the lands, trees and landscape guy, if I sever those root systems, puts that tree in peril, and the only place for it to fall is on my house and patio. You know, that's the north side structural root system that I'm talking about severing. And I asked him about air blading, so could I somehow, he said, no, you're too close to the trunk of that tree to air blade.
And your lot is not rectangular,
No, it's
correct?
high shade
So, and it is narrower
in the back.
in the back
Yes,
where the garage is located
yes.
than
It
it
keeps
is
getting narrower as you go farther back.
in the
um,
front.
You know, the garage,
Because your lot goes uphill.
it goes uphill and it gets
If
narrow.
when you construct a new garage, you're gonna have to, you said dig out a couple of feet or,
Well, if I stay on the existing, if I stay as close as possible to the existing site, I have to excavate very little, a little bit on the right, a very little in the rear. I'm not enlarging my current usable space, if you want to call what I have usable. It's just under 800 square feet. I'm just gonna bump this up to 1,000. It's gonna be I would love to be just a little bit wider to the east and a little bit deeper to the north. And that way I don't have to remove as much. I don't have to add a whole ton of asphalt to my property,
But
which
if
is not a
you
good.
use the same footprint for the driveway and driveway apron, you would probably not have.
If I
to
stay on the
excavate
6 foot, it
and
lines
not-
up perfectly.
And not have to construct a retaining wall, correct?
Well, I probably have to do a little bit of a retaining wall between where my current pad stops and the new garage, because if
Right.
hard to see, but my lot rises up. The backside of my garage will probably be 3 feet underground.
But the retaining wall
I-
that you might have to have between the driveway pad and the tree would not be required if you had,
No,
if you have
I-
to move the driveway.
What you can see in that picture, if it's visible, there's a basketball stand and then there's like a little barbecue pit. The only thing I would have to remove would be that barbecue pit if I'm granted the.
okay, looking at the picture we're looking at now with the
Yes.
blue. That blue represents coming out
6 feet,
6 feet.
correct. I don't know if she has one representing 12 feet.
This is the 12
So
foot.
Yeah, so it goes well out past it and I would lose it. I had that staked. It's not even out to the stake.
Because when I put the blue box over each of them, there was a way larger blue box for this one and a smaller blue box for the other one. So they didn't align. So I used the same blue box.
Okay, well, it's
Um,
because it's not reaching it. So-
Yeah.
And it would be an additional 2 feet.
There's
farther
another.
to the
Okay, so
right.
the previous, which, the slide you just had up, the previous,
Oops,
no,
sorry.
I'm sorry, with the, there you go. That
That's
blue box represents
6 feet off. my
6
foot.
feet off, which is what the request is.
That is the
Correct.
request. Thank you.
So that's coming pretty close to your sidewalk, uh,
6 feet, well, my fence line,
blacktopped area and going,
yeah, that lines up pretty good. I'm a little bit off my driveway approach by a foot or so.
not much.
Not much, an inconsequential amount, 12 feet, I mean, that's an interstate highway width. You could drive a semi truck down that. That's what highways are, 12 feet wide.
So we're saying the bigger, if it was at 12 feet,
The big problem
you
is.
got more issues in the back of the garage because of the slope of the lot? Is that what?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've had all sorts of erosion issues through that. There was a shed on the rear and all sorts of erosion issues. Of course, with a brand new garage and a brand new foundation footing, all of that is resolved.
Yeah,
And,
Okay.
and we feel that a 3-car garage is an appropriate garage in that neighborhood for houses like that. In this day and age, multiple drivers, multiple cars, can't hardly have them in the garage.
you have a beautiful house
It is,
from-
thank you
from
very much.
Lockwood.
Yeah. no,
And
it
if
is.
you- and
We're
if you
very
don't-
fortunate to be there.
And currently with the existing garage, while you don't park a car in
No, we can't.
that
and-
part, I mean, and that may be all you do in the third bay for a while too, is store.
A mountain of toys. I have riding lawnmowers, I have, snow blowers and
Right.
pressure washers. And I'm a contractor, and so I have a lot of junk. too much.
John, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Oh, I do,
Okay.
actually. Do you even have any estimate of what the drip line radius is from that trunk?
That drip line stops right where that yard bumps out.
You can see it.
I took marking tape and I did a circle all the way around the.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yes, and it's a pretty big drip line, but it doesn't go any farther than that barbecue pit.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
most of the big, long, heavy limbs extend out over the patio. I don't know if that's visible in the picture or not.
Hard to
It actually shadows the back of the house, it shadows the patio and our shade garden area. It's,
thank you.
my pleasure.
All right. Is there anyone, go ahead.
Well, I have one question. What's the width of this walkway, which is like an easement? How wide is that?
Well,
Well, the side, it's a regular width sidewalk.
Regular
it's a
side.
10
It's a
foot.
full width
it's a
sidewalk
10
plus
foot
some
easement.
space on either side.
So that's a
this-
10-foot easement.
Yes,
So your garage is 10 foot right now
yes,
from the neighbors.
but more than that.
Yeah, which I think is another interesting aspect of this entire thing, that there's this easement that you have nothing to do with
No,
between these two homes. Very interesting.
yeah, no, it isn't. But it does help satisfy this crowding of the
Sure.
adjacent neighbor. I
Sure.
know that it's not supposed to do that, but it does do that. And, we don't want to, I don't want to stick my garage in the middle of my backyard.
Mhm.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Peppel? All right, you can sit down, sir. Is there anyone else here in favor of docket 2407 who would like to speak? Is there anyone opposed to docket 2407? Hearing none and seeing none. Now, Mr. Peppel, you have to make the same decision that Mr. Seppi did. We only have 4 board members tonight. You will need all 4 board members' approval. If you wish to bet on us, we can go ahead and make your decision, or you could hold this and we will automatically put you on the April 11th docket, when we will hopefully have 5 members. Okay. Okay, let's move to close, to board, let's close the open session and move to board discussion. Could we have a motion for docket 2407 so we could start discussion?
I move approval of docket 2407.
Second.
Okay. Anyone want to start the discussion?
Well, it's certainly not the first time we've seen an argument of a hardship shaped around a tree. And
Fair.
we live in a time when shade is really an ever increasingly valuable commodity. It is hard to ignore that there are other instances of rear yard garages in the immediate vicinity, even though that doesn't constitute a hardship that we can use to make a decision with. It is a prevalent condition.
And this is a pie-shaped lot with the narrow area in the rear where the garage is located, as opposed to at the right of way, when one normally thinks of pie-shaped lots. I don't know that it's a hardship, but it is a condition that's not generally prevalent. The 10-foot sidewalk easement along the west side of the lot that separates this, separates the garage on this lot from the garage on the neighboring lot.
I agree.
I'd add, or I guess I'm thinking the topography of the lot,
True,
Mm.
good point.
Good point.
does go uphill. I can see the need to get the garage off of the lot line. And doing so, garage is by that one pick we had here. It's not going to go over
Mm.
the current blacktopped area. think that was correct,
Mhm.
right? With the
Mhm.
blue image we had here moments ago. I can see an argument by the homeowner that, hey, my lot is not as wide in the back and I don't want to go out toward the center of it. And you know, he could have gone 8 feet, he could have gone 2 feet. But he's making a logical request in my mind. And those to me are the main arguing points. I do understand the tree and the possible retaining walls or
Mhm.
work that would go on behind the garage. So
Okay.
it's a long driveway.
And they are moving the garage further away from the
Mhm.
property.
They
line.
are moving it 6 feet from the property line.
Any other comments? Let's call for the question. All in favor of docket 2407, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Would you please poll the board?
Debbie Saulberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague,
Aye.
John Burse,
Aye.
and Tom Walls. Aye.
Your request has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next step. Thank you. Is the petitioner for 2408 online? Okay. Tom, would you please read docket 2408 into the record?
Yes, I would. Docket 2408, a petition submitted by Megan and Paul Robert Herbig for an application for variance from section 53.063C2 of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 2.9 feet from the required 6-foot east side yard setback in order to build a second story on the house located 3.1 feet from the east side yard property line. The property is located at 32 West Glendale Road within the A3 10,000 square foot residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Bontrager?
Prior to putting in evidence, we would ask that exhibits 1 through 9, including the PowerPoint, which will be presented as part of this evidence, be included in the record.
Thank you.
And Mara, this docket number 32 West Glendale has appeared in front of this board in the past for a similar request which was approved. Do we want to include that in the record for the purpose of this?
I was going to describe that in the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Correct.
We'll do it throughout the evidence. We would ask Mara Perry to testify.
Please go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 32 West Glendale Road?
Yes, I am.
Is that property within city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is this property located?
In the A3 10,000 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant's request in docket number 2408?
So the applicant is requesting a variance of 2.9 feet from the required 6-foot east side yard setback in order to build a second story on the house located 3.1 feet from the east side property line.
And which municipal code sections apply to this request?
Code section is 53.063C, side yard setback, item 2. Residential structures existing as of September 20, 1956, which are closer to the side property line than 8 feet, may be enlarged provided any addition is no closer to the side property line than 12% of the lot width at the front yard setback.
Would you please describe the existing conditions of the property?
Yes, so the house which you see on the survey here was built in 1915. This particular project came before the board in February of 2023. At that time, the applicants were not doing a full second story on the house. they were going to be building a dormer off the back of the house that was going to encroach within the setback. When we approved that, we focused on the setback related to the structure as it is currently located on the property, which you can see here. We were focusing on the 3.1 foot setback to the edge of the wall of the structure. You can see here, there's a green line of what the setbacks are that need to be met. It's a 6-foot side yard on the eastern property line. That eastern property line, it's based on the 12% of the width of lot. It's only a 50-foot wide lot. And it's in the A3 zoning district, which allows it to be the 12%, which puts it back at 6, which is a little unusual because 6 is the setback for the A4. But it just happens to make it a 6-foot setback. And the current house sits at 3.1 feet to the main wall or line of the house. So what they are proposing to do is a full second-story addition now onto the house versus just a dormer off of the back of the existing structure. And you can see here, the variance is for 2.9 feet to the 3.1 foot setback that's being requested from the side property line. Apologize, my red line's a little thick and wasn't in the right exact location. It should align. I apologize. And I kept putting it on there's a little bump out on the side on the first floor, and it should actually align with the second floor. This is the proposed second floor plan. So they are not going to be going out over the bump out. So that red line should actually be bumped over and be in alignment with the blue. But the green line is in a correct location. So the proposal is to do a full second story off of the house. And you can see here the proposed full second story. And again, red line should be shoved over closer to the house. And they are proposing that full second story. You did previously, or the board at the time did give this same variance, but only for the dormer off the back. It was enough of a change that we felt that it really needed to come back because it was a full second story, so that it would be advertised correctly with this change that they're proposing to do the full second story off the house versus just the dormer of the past variance. And any questions?
Is the house itself, is it in the variance or not?
Yes.
It
So
is. That's what I
the
thought.
main part of the house
The main
is
part of the house is
the,
in the variance already,
And the second story will align with
the bump out.
No.
No.
It will align with the rest of the house. The bump out will not extend as far as the bump out.
so the second story, the main portion of the house
Gonna
is
be
going
right over
straight
bump-
up.
yeah, bump out. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
But the bump out will remain, but that.
Bump out will remain,
But it's
correct.
But that, but that's
part
not
of it.
germane to this, yes.
It's kind of a bay window.
Yes.
Bay window, but,
But bump outs like
yeah, well,
words.
I always think of a bay window as being angled, but yeah. It's an architectural feature for. the-
Architectural
Oh,
feature that
for
extends
fenestration-
out.
That addresses fenestration. Oh, yes.
I know we're not in discussion yet, but I think of a bump out as what we considered on that first agenda item. That's a bump out.
Okay, all right, all right. Any other questions for Mara? Who's, if not, who's here for docket 2408?
So I'm going to move the applicants over to be allowed to talk.
Okay,
So if you wanted to unmute, there you go.
Hi, this is Megan Herbick.
hi, Megan, thank you for joining us tonight. Could you please raise your right hand and repeat, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, and my hand was raised.
Oh, I'll take your word for it. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. Make your, explain your variance request.
Sorry that we are not there in person. We have a young child who had a bedtime of 6:30 tonight, so had two conflicting things at one time. But thank you for reviewing this again. And we were there a year ago, and plans have changed. We're just going to go ahead and do the full second story. It makes more sense for our family and is going to give a lot more room upstairs. And just to clarify as well, that bump out that is on that first floor, it is a super cute window bench that's inside of our home. But just to clarify that the second story will not be over that. It will just be over the existing, where the existing house structure is. So I wanted to clarify that. Just in thinking about this, the house already exists 3.1 feet from the property line. We're not, going farther over to that. We're just going up. So we're not going out, we're just going up. Anybody have any questions? I think it's pretty, it's pretty straightforward.
And the second story ceiling height's going to match your first story ceiling height. So it's not like you're going up, 18 more feet rather than 9, 8 or 9.
Correct. Yeah, it's just, I believe it's just a normal, regular second story matching what our first floor is.
Anyone else have any questions from Ms. Herbig?
No?
If you were listening to the other two petitions, you will
Yeah.
know that we are normally a 5-member board, and tonight, although we thought we were going to have 5, we only have 4 members. You
Okay.
do need all 4 members to vote to approve this request. At this point in time, before we go into board session, board discussion for the vote, you can decide if you would like to postpone this till April 11th, when we hopefully would have 5 members, or if you want to just go ahead tonight with the 4 of us.
The same thing happened last year in February. There were 4 members, and we had a great result. So I trust that you all will make a good decision again, and let's go ahead and move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is there anyone else in favor of docket 2408? Is there anyone opposed to docket 2408? Hearing none and seeing none, and since the petitioner has indicated she's okay with us going ahead with 4 members, I'd like to close the public session and move into board discussion. Can we have a motion regarding 2408 so we can start that discussion?
I'll move that we approve the variance request for docket item 2408.
I'll second.
Okay. Anyone want to start us out with some comments?
No, I think the rationale is very similar to what we heard before. It's a very small lot, and I think it's within reason. They've not exceeded the footprint of the house, and I think given the situation that they have, this is a very reasonable request.
Pre-existing condition.
Mhm.
Lines up with the existing residence.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're already into the easement with the regular house,
Right.
which
Anyone have any other comments? If not, all in favor of docket 2408, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Tom, would you please poll the commission?
Debbie
the board?
Sahlberg,
Aye.
Randy Sprague.
Aye.
John Burse.
Aye.
Tom Walls. Aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Is there any other business before the board?
No other business this evening. I do know I have 3 for next month.
Sounds great. All in favor of, could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah. Second.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The meeting is adjourned. We'll see you April 11th.
Ah.